transaction.
Ah, bam! Good morning. Breakfast with the Broker every Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. We're here with a treat, a special treat. The one and only. We call him, or his nickname is the Godfather of the MLS. Sorry, I know how you love that. Donn Wonderling with BEX Realty, and really appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. As I was telling your assistant Rebecca the other day, I just happened to be on your Facebook, and I saw this Breakfast with a Broker thing, and I was like, wow, that looks like a lot of fun. I wish I could do that. And then she called me the next day. I was completely surprised and blown away. I'm just glad you didn't ask me to do a chest bump. That's more you and Jonathan Lickstein. That's more for you guys.
Well, I didn't want to throw you out the window either.
Thank you. Yeah.
The MLS has certainly evolved, and we were talking about stories, and the funny thing is how people come into your life and such, and way back in 2003 or 4, when we did the RMLS user group.
Oh yeah.
And I didn't even put the connection when we kind of got reintroduced last year when we were in the board of directors.
I didn't put it together either, but as I thought about it, since we talked about that, I do remember you being there. And it's just, I didn't know you didn't know me, we didn't see each other for another decade and a half then, you know what I mean? But
it's crazy. So we were on the Regional Multiple Listing Service user group with Kristen Carr and Bill Tyson and Bill Richardson.
Yeah.
And Zev Freitas.
Zev, that's how I met
Patty
him.
Connor.
And Patty O'Connor, she of course was the CEO at the time.
Yeah, so it's come full circle.
Well, I guess we're dedicated, right? So where else would we be?
Yeah, so we're MLS nerds. That's fine.
Right.
I'm fine with that. So let's talk about the MLS. Multiple Listing Service. It's kind of in the news and such, and people start talking, and what's this gonna happen, and how we're gonna do things, and whatever. What's the state of the multiple listings? Now, listen, just so you know, these opinions are just of Donn Wonderling and of David Searle. It has no relationship to the board or any board's opinions or anything. That's my disclosure, disclaimer. We are just having a discussion as to our thoughts on the multiple listing service and going forward.
Well, that's exactly it. So what I'm telling you is just sort of my personal thoughts about this. The only people that speak on behalf of the association or the MLS is the president or the CEO, and neither one. You and I are
not that.
So
we're free to talk. No, just
exactly.
Sorry, Jared.
But so I mean, the MLS. It's a. Look, I think the theme of the MLS these days is to protect cooperation and compensation. I mean, that's what it started out to be. I think we went through a period where that model was under attack. It is still under attack in a lot of ways. And what we saw recently from the National Association of Realtors was an effort to reemphasize that base, because look, there's nothing that's more important, I don't think, to realtors than the MLS. I know when we learn in school, whenever we're taught that what defines us as realtors is the fact that we agree to live up to a certain code of ethics. And I do agree with that, but I'll tell you, on the real practical side, it's also the fact that we cooperate while we compete, and we offer each other compensation as well. That is, I think, really the key to our industry. We can't let it go away.
No, and as you said, we have all these attacks, bombs coming, rockets coming, and we're, for a very long time we've took shelter. And
True
nowadays, we're back somewhat on the attack, because what people don't realize, I think, also, and when we're referring to the NAR Clear Cooperation Policy 8.0, it was really more of an effort to bring the agent or the realtor back in the center of the transaction and the center of the cooperation, and to really try and bring value to the consumer, as opposed to not having some of the listings, when we call pocket listings or off-market listings. I guess my question to you would, how do you feel about pocket listings and off-market listings?
Well, I mean, I honestly, I don't have a super strong opinion about that. I recognize that many businesses consider that to be vital, and that is good enough for me. I recognize how important it is. It certainly has been popular for many years. I think the fad sort of started in California and came eastward here. And I think it's beneficial in many regards. But I think there have been plenty of situations where maybe brokers and agents took that a little bit too far and looked more towards the interests of their business interests and a little bit less towards the interests of the people we're representing, meaning the sellers and so forth. So I think we took a major correction there by adopting this NAR 8.0 clear cooperation policy. But at least from my standpoint, it had less to do with, honestly, in my opinion, it has less to do with protecting the consumer and more about protecting realtors and how we do business. That's and I think that might be an important distinction to make here too. As brokers and agents, we serve the public, but as MLS officials, we do not directly serve the public. We serve our members. So we have to think and do things that are first and foremost in the benefits of realtors, the agents and brokers that we represent.
Yeah, imagine a multiple listing service where you have all the inventory, and the consumers don't see all the inventory.
Mm-hmm, that's right.
And then you are able to bring back some of that inventory that they can't see on other portals. Mm-hmm. And say, hey, I got 123 Appleby Street that just came
mm-hmm.
on the market. Let's go take a look at it. Mm-hmm. So that I think is so important from from this whole clear cooperation. Mm-hmm. It is bringing back the realtor and giving them the ammunition, the information, so that you can give value to the consumer. Yeah. That's the only thing what I meant from like a mm-hmm. directly kind of thing or indirectly kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So. The multiple listing. Where do you see the multiple listing service and the MLS 5 years from now?
Well, that's a good question. I think there's a lot of things going on in the industry right now that we need to be paying attention to. Of course, I know plenty of people in the business who are not concerned about iBuyers. They see it as just flipping houses by another name. I'm not so sure I believe that. I know that I haven't seen recent statistics, but I know earlier in last year, I know one company, CoreLogic, had some research showing that they think within 5 or 10 years that 25% of all real estate transactions in the country will be intermediated by an iBuyer and not by realtors. And I've seen other groups estimate up to 40%. I mean, the question I have for you is, can you imagine a business in our industry if somewhere between 25 and 40% of all the transactions in the country suddenly were not being intermediated by realtors? Can you imagine that and what that would mean in every single way? I mean, certainly it would be, let's not even talk about the MLS. What would it do for your business? What would it do for your business? Sure. The one thing that we need to do in order to protect our livelihoods, to protect a system that has worked not just well for us, but for the consumers in this country extremely well, is to make sure that we have all the data, we have all the listings in one place that we can use that to put to do our business. If we let pieces of it go off over here and people are going away, it's already all that inventory that is being sold by iBuyers and maybe sold by iBuyers will not be in the MLS. So we need to rally around what we've known for the last century.
Now, I've seen, obviously iBuyers have been around, and you mentioned, people talk about names, We Buy Ugly Houses and Home Investors and
sure,
all those
they all
kind
been
of things.
around.
And, but the one thing that, at least I see, especially recently, mm-hmm. is that they are actually using a realtor. They may not use a realtor for the purchase, but they seem to end up using a realtor for the sale.
I hope you're right.
So I don't know that, I don't know the statistics, that the data's not out on that. However, from what I've seen, they're calling realtors, and just in my little circle or whatever that I know or have you. So, they may not be using it on the purchase side because that wouldn't make any sense to them. But I believe they're going to end up, now if they build a huge database, with, past clients or past people that they've worked with and been affiliated with or what have you, they may not need a realtor at some point if they're going to push it out, very similar to what we talked about with the off-market and pocket listings. And I think from, off-market and pocket listings, why they became so popular, I think originally it was the realtor that had the good intent. I think it wasn't just to, double dip or sell it themselves or those kind of things. I think it really was, hey, we're creating a sense of urgency. We're creating a special VIP exclusive, option, and and it's going to be good for the seller. And I believe that is. The problem is how long can you keep it off the market and still make it good for the seller?
That's that's the right question.
So, who knows, from iBuyers and MLSs. Yeah. So MLSs now are starting, or a lot of them are going to APIs versus RET servers.
Can I say one more thing about this, about the iBuyer thing?
Yeah.
This is what I think concerns me about this too. Is the sort of the automation of our business. I do see that as a big trend. When you look at what Amazon did, for retail or to retail, and when you look at what Uber did to the taxi industry, these are industries that traditionally had poor customer service, and these companies just completely took over. And there's certainly plenty of other examples. Maybe Airbnb is another example. But the fact is the real estate business has been fraught with accusations of not always having good customer service. So I think these big companies see this industry, especially since it's the number one driver of the U.S. economy. They see this industry as an opportunity. And I don't think they're going to give it up that easily. We can discard it as just being, another example of flipping, but I think there's more to it than that. I think the technology involved with it too makes it different than the others. The ability to automatically, value properties without these appraisers and realtors and things like that too. So look, when you're talking about the future of the MLS, these are things we definitely have to keep in mind.
Yeah, and I think the real estate industry and realtors in general are the most vulnerable than they've ever been.
More so.
And all of a sudden, we're, if you have 1.4 million realtors, right, in the National Association of Realtors, right?
Yeah.
And the statistics is 45% of those don't do a single transaction in a year.
That's exactly right.
So how can we be a professional organization, give really good customer service when nearly half of them don't even do any business? I mean,
you're right.
Not any, none.
And then you take out some that do the 1 and 2s we're talking about, and I think that's even going to be further exacerbated in the future. Meaning, if you, look, we all talk about customer service, but I think we're going to have to find new levels of customer services to go to, in order to keep that business and keep it out of the hands of those iBuyers.
Yeah, and we gotta be. I think we have to be careful with the automation. We have to be careful with the virtual assistants.
True.
We have to be very careful with outsourcing things, because what happens is you can't outsource customer service. I mean, it's very important that you are in the center of the transaction, giving value to your consumer every day. And if you can't, if you're gonna,
go ahead,
you're gonna put robots in.
No, I wrote a really mean email to somebody, and I wrote, clearly your team has no sense of customer service.
Ooh.
So, and was it automated? Was it because there was canned responses and stuff like that?
No, it was a property management company.
Oh, okay.
Well, that's a whole other story.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about taking over an industry. Property management is going to be taken over.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
that's a prime. But getting back to customer service.
Yeah.
You have to be there for your customer. Now, there are a lot of things that are maybe not as vital to your business that you can delegate.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there are, some minutiae that you can delegate. You can't delegate customer service.
Right.
Yeah.
Amen.
Cool, I got an amen.
David said, perfect quote for this thing. Stick it right in. This is the byline. You can't out-service customer service. Outsource customer service. That's right.
Most people don't understand the data feeds and so,
it's complicated.
It is very complicated. And they say, well, why can't this field map with this field? And I don't understand when Greater Fort Lauderdale wasn't part of our board, why the fields don't match up and this and that. And just click a button. It's just like, mapping Excel fields.
That's right. That's all it is. Actually, I guess that is kind of all it
is. Except there's 10,000 of them.
Exactly. And the names of the fields don't match up. So you have to kind of guess what each one means. And sometimes there's shades of difference between what this field does and what this one does. And can we really map them together?
Yeah, and the example I give is like pool Y and pool yes spelled out.
Well, okay.
Those kind of things. But people don't realize that. And then you have to it's basically an algorithm. So you're trying to move everything together. So, but most realtors just want it done. Just map them.
That's right.
Figure it out.
You're right. Is there a question on all this?
Yeah, I think so.
We want to know
The question is, how do you explain to realtors why Miami, with our data sharing, listing doesn't look like our board listings. So some of the information may be incomplete. Maybe you don't get all the HOA fees coming over or the subdivision info, that kind of stuff.
I don't know that I have a really good answer for this, and I'm not sure I'm the best person to answer it either. But it's just
you're better than me.
No, I don't think so. Honestly, look, all I can tell you is our systems evolved in different ecosystems. There's needs in Miami that are greater than the needs here, and vice versa. Obviously, in Miami, there's a lot of even more than here. Foreign purchases of real estate. Purchase of real estate by foreign people and so forth. And just the ecosystem that their MLS developed in is different than ours here. So of course, that's going to necessarily lead to fields that are in one and not another. If you can think of a more extreme situation where why wouldn't we be able to match with a MLS in Colorado? Well, that's an extraordinarily different ecosystem. But the point is even right now, even as it is between Miami and our MLS Beaches MLS, we're still having matches. Our fields match up to around 60-70%. So it's not that bad. And but we're never going to have a 100% match, nor should we, because our needs are different.
I like that because real estate is always they say real estate's local.
It completely is.
MLS is even more local, hyper local, whatever you want to call it. Mm-hmm. Within our boards, I think we've done they've done a really good job.
Yeah,
they have putting together.
And probably our staff is what we're referring to there. We have an extraordinary staff. They do a fantastic job. I don't know what we do without them, honestly.
Crazy. So, kind of segueing into. Does Donn Wonderling, believe in a statewide MLS or a version thereof?
No. I'm not in favor of statewide MLS, and I'm certainly not in favor of a national MLS. Look, the problem is, this: if you put that statewide or you nationalize it, you don't know who's going to be in charge of it. Our members need to know that they are directly in charge of the people that are running this MLS. But the further it gets away from the local level, the harder it is to control. And let's be honest with you, and again, this is just me speaking as me, I don't think the National Association of Realtors has done a really good job in terms of how they manage technology. I don't know that any of us are happy about Realtor.com. I think that there are other platforms out there that do a better job than Realtor.com in terms of how they place the listing agent, listing broker information in their displays. It is sort of disappointing that we have no say over Realtor.com, and that's our name, Realtor.com, but that there's another company that runs that now, and I don't think we have much to say about it. And if you look at RPR, I mean, I don't remember what the final bill was for that. I think it was somewhere around $250 million. It might have been more than that. But it was an enormous amount of money, and it was a good product, but it wasn't worth that much. It just wasn't worth that much. So I'm not sure I would ever trust the National Association of Realtors to manage an MLS. I don't see the track record there. But the most important point, though, is if we keep it local, the members have control over what that MLS looks like.
Yeah, and we are a member-driven
That's
organization.
right. We should be.
And we
fortunately here we are.
Yeah,
very much so.
And there's no such thing as a one-size-fits-all policy.
Yeah.
We look at the statewide MLS. We look at what the Florida Association of Realtors have done. And they put out what is it, MLS Advantage, and all those different things.
Yeah.
Again, do you trust a state to run an organization that and they may be amazing at it. But do you really want people selling, from the Keys to Tallahassee, or I don't know, or
I mean,
Destin?
we basically have that ability now. I don't have too much. I don't have too much trouble with that. I don't think that's an issue.
Okay.
I think it's really purely a matter of management. You know what I mean? And but we have MLS Advantage. It's certainly not a statewide MLS in the sense that it does not have an input module. You can't input listings into that. But I think 90% of all associations and MLSs already put their inventory into that product. So we can, with a couple exceptions like the Palm Beach Island or the Indian River County, I mean most of the state is invested in that, and so we can sell across across the state. And MLS Advantage also has the offer of compensation too. So there, so that's no longer an issue where you can't go anywhere and you got to wonder if you're going to get paid. But and it hasn't hurt our business. I think it's gone well, but I would not suggest taking it to the next step, which is to create an input module and have it as a full-fledged MLS.
I agree 100%. The you mentioned offer of compensation, and that's been in the news relatively recently as well, with the Washington board that that is offering or putting the offer of compensation to a cooperating agent in public display. I believe Redfin has also put it in public display on their particular listings. I think it seems to be a trend that seems to be growing. Is there an issue with that? Do you see? What's your opinion on it? And if I put you on the spot, you don't
it's okay.
You
can put me on the spot. I'll just tell you. Right. Honestly, I don't know that I've given that enough thought to give you a good answer. But I can tell you, I'm suspicious of that. You know what I mean? I'm not sure that is in the interest of realtors, and that's what I care about all the time is realtors. And I think that might be an example of pandering to the public as opposed to really focusing on the interests of the members that we serve. Not sure. Like I said, I'm not rendering a final decision about it. But I'm not keen on it.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I mean to me the cooperating brokers commission, should not. The public has no. It shouldn't matter. I mean, if you're going to do that, then why don't you just upload the listing agreement into Zillow or Realtor.com, and so that everyone can see your listing agreement. What terms are you going to? All right. So I offer you 2% on the cooperating brokers, but then I pay you a bonus, and the bonus doesn't go on there, or I mean, there's so many issues and moving parts that just to me it doesn't make any sense. It's almost like someone trying to be a trendsetter. And
all that stuff comes out of the West, doesn't
it? all the good
maniacs
stuff.
out there. Right there,
But I'll tell you, when you look at we look at some of the companies, right? Well, Keller Williams, Remax, Century 21. Locally, obviously, BEX is huge. I mean, and we'll talk about BEX in a minute. But when you look at what even Keller Williams has done. Keller Williams has basically made most of the larger companies, or even independent or whatever, focus on training. And, we never focused on training, 10 years ago, 12 years ago. Now Remax all of a sudden is. Century 21, same thing. Coldwell Banker, all the Realogy brands. They're all focusing, a lot of their efforts on training and coming up with training because, as you talk about, evolve, right?
Right.
Locally, BEX, I mean, Zev is a genius to me. I mean,
he's a genius to all of us. I agree with you. He was doing something that nobody else was doing, at the time. There was no Zillow when Zev started and created that website.
No, all my clients or customers are searching on BEX, and they're like, "Hey, what's this?
Can I get their names, please?"
Yeah. And they're filling out the forms, but if you want to talk about trendsetter, and I'll have Zev on.
I wish he would. He's much more interesting to talk to than I am.
No, listen. I think just an amazing trendsetter, and putting together that website, proprietary to BEX at the time, Boca Executive, and really, really push the game. And I think everyone, and that's what we need to get back to, is that we need to push the game. Because when we're looking at AI and AR and all these different things that going down the line, we need to push it.
What pushes the game, frankly, again, is inventory. So why, and it kind of goes back to that very first discussion we have. What makes all of our websites competitive against these big platforms is the fact that we have inventory that they don't have. I mean, you can create a beautiful site, but if there's nothing, or if there's less value there because there's less inventory to look at, then what good is it? That's and I do want to mention that that's one of the things we've always done well at our MLS, meaning our brokers and agents have access to sold data for their websites. I don't know how many people use it, but it's there to be used, and we do not give that out to any of the national portals. Only you have it, so use it. And I think I think that there is maybe a status coming up in the future that we are going to give only to our members and brokers too. So this is the reason. Part of the reason Zev was successful was he took all this inventory and he put it in one spot in a place. And Google is able to find it, and because Google was able to find it and things that thought it was important, then so did the public, and so the public found us. That recipe still works, but in order for it to work, we have to have something on our websites that Zillow and Realtor.com do not have. And right now, what people want to do, what they've done in the last 10 years, is take these pocket listings, and they've put that inventory on Zillow and the other portals where they do not exist on our websites. So we are feeding the wrong beast here. We want to feed ourselves. We don't want to feed somebody else.
Yeah, I agree. And, I remember when we were in that user group, I remember one of the things that Zev brought up at the time was CMAs, instant CMAs kind of things.
Yeah.
And that was back in, 2003, 2004.
Yep.
So, when you're talking about, thinking ahead of the game.
Oh, man.
That definitely was Zev and obviously Boca Executive BEX. And, I just, I admire the whole operation.
I appreciate that. And I agree. Zev was a one of a kind.
Yeah.
Still is. I talked about in the past.
Yeah.
But,
Zev's still here.
He's still here. He's doing great too, by the way. I just talked to him the other day.
So I think what we need to do is industry leaders, and is that we need to push the envelope as well. We need to start looking at the 3 and the 5 year and the 10 years of where the MLS is going to be, where the realtor is going to be placed. How are we going to help our consumer? What value are we going to give to them?
You're right. We've coasted on that for a long time, but now we have to really think actively about it. We have to plat out our future because it's not going to happen automatically like I think it did for probably a few decades.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. So one last question.
All right.
What don't we know about Donn Wonderling that we should?
Really, a lot of things, and I'm not going to tell you one of them. Not one. Let me think. Is there anything that I can reveal here on this thing? Probably not.
Well, I need to. Where's that truth serum that I need to?
Gosh, you put me on the spot.
Did you talk about injection?
Let me think about that a second. What do you don't know? I don't know. I really don't know. I don't think about myself that much.
Well, then we'll talk about as a business leader. I've been to a lot of meetings, and I think I told you this after our last board of director luncheon, and I said, your meeting is exactly the way I want to, kind of exemplify it. Like, I had
Appreciate that.
my first meeting, chaired my first meeting the other day, and it didn't go exactly the way you did. So I'm sure you have a lot more. Well, you do have a lot more experience, but I appreciate the way that you conduct yourself in a meeting and run it very efficiently.
Thank you.
And how did you get to that point? Was it just from experience, or just kind of putting guidelines? How do you run an effective meeting?
You're going to, expose me for the incredible nerd that I am.
Yeah.
Look, that's a big secret. But no, look, I studied political science at Penn State. One of the things that interested me was parliamentary procedure. I was also that nerd who ran for office. I was, at the main campus there. I was a student government senator, and I was also the parliamentarian for our. And I served 3 years there. We represented 46,000, 43,000. Oh, that's all right. The yawning right on the thing. All right, so I'll find something else.
Oh,
I'll talk about something else.
The millennial.
Oh, God, anyway.
Yeah.
I know. Parliamentary procedure. But I don't blame you, honestly. Talking about that kind of stuff is enormously boring. But the fact is, look, you don't have to. Somebody already, created the map to making good meetings. And you don't have to know everything about parliamentary procedure to do it, but as you know, I do follow it, and I don't follow it in a dictatorial way. I don't expect my people at my meetings to understand how it works. I understand how it works, and I use those principles to make sure everybody is heard, that the majority gets to make the decision, but the minority interests are always protected. And and I listen very carefully to make sure to stop to move things forward whenever people are repeating themselves. The key to running a good meeting is not to sit back and let the members just go on forever. The point is to listen carefully, have a sense of when the discussion is done, and move it forward. That's what I can tell you.
Love it.
Yeah. You got to.
Yeah.
You don't just sit there. You have to listen. You have to think and pay attention to everything people are saying.
That's so hard. Listen.
I know.
Usually I heard it from someone who was a sociologist that we brought in, and she says, most people listen with the intent to reply rather than listening with the intent to understand.
That's a really good point.
And I think we have to get to that point where, hey, we're listening not to just, in our minds, we're going to forget our thought, I'm going to reply to you.
You're right.
Listen to understand what that person is saying so we can communicate effectively.
That's right. That's really good. That's exactly right. And that's what it is to run a good meeting.
Don, I got to tell you, this was an ultimate pleasure, really, really good. And
you're too kind.
Certainly appreciate the parliamentary procedure.
Well, apparently it wasn't appreciated by everybody.
Miss Rebecca Steiner.
I think it was interesting. I just am not a political science person at all.
Thank God.
Yeah.
They're not good people.
Yeah.
I would have lasted a minute and walked out of that class.
So thank you, Don.
Thank you,
very
sir.
much appreciate
Always
it.
a pleasure.
Breakfast with the Broker every Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. And who's next week?
I think Sue.
Sue Torriello. We are going to have on there. We're going to talk about maybe why she decided to join and what's that? Yes. But she had Torriello and Company, and she decided to join Douglas Elliman. We're going to talk about mergers and such like that, and some luxury real estate, because she's been a fixture in the Delray community for a while now, and a very respected broker and agent. So thank you very much, Don. I very much appreciate it.
We love what you're doing here. This is fantastic, honestly.
Thank you.
Great job.
Thank you very much. And we'll see you soon, next Tuesday, 9 a.m., Breakfast with the Broker. Thanks so much.
I'll be there.
Bye.